Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half Danish on the away side. Both of these breweries have featured on the channel before, and I would say that both of them are known for their different kinds of IPAs, and I would also describe them as being, up and coming breweries in their respective countries. So when I saw these guys had done a collaboration together, it piqued my interest. It's a style that I know they can both do very well individually, so I have to say I'm quite curious to see what happens when they put their heads together. So hopefully this is another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So for the home side of things then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review then, we are going to go a little bit to the south of the city, to Kungsbacka, and we're having a look at another beer from AKiA Brygghus. So this particular beer is called Two Great Mondays. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and it's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Now, this beer is brewed in collaboration with Caleidoskope Brewing Co, who are from Amager in the south of Copenhagen on Fyn in Denmark, just over the water from me here in Skåne, in the south of Sweden actually. But we've had great IPAs from both of these breweries before, so this should make for a very interesting collaboration. This beer was released here in Sweden as part of the local småskalig assortment through Systembolaget for April of 2022. So yes, this should be quite nice. But yeah, let's crack on with it then and see how we get on. Always nice to review new beers both from AKiA and from Caleidoskope as well. I always enjoy reviewing new Danish and Swedish things, and these guys, as I say, are two up-and-coming breweries. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from AKiA Brygghus and from Caleidoskope Brewing Company. We will no doubt add more to both of those lists in the fairly near future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the Danish beers. This beer will appear in both of those because it is dual nationality, of course. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about both of these breweries then. And we'll start off with AKiA Brygghus, since these guys are the home brewery in this instance. So, AKiA Brygghus, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Kungsbacka to the south of Gothenburg, Göteborg up on the Swedish west coast, and the brewery was founded by Christian Figved back in 2016. So he had worked as a lighting technician in the music industry for a number of years, and this had taken him all across the world. But he was a sound engineer for Soundtrack of Our Lives, and he also worked with the Wannadies and Tostrum as well, who are quite well respected Swedish acts. But he travelled around the world for about 8 years, then he had children, and so he decided that he had to stay put in his work life. So he started off. He'd always been passionate about beer, but he started off working 20% in the brewery, and he brewed originally with a 300 litre brew kit, but he very quickly found that this wasn't big enough, and so he upgraded to a 1500 litre brew kit in August of 2017, which took his brewing capacity up to 40,000 litres of beer per year. The following year, in 2018, he brewed a total of around 10,000 litres of beer per year. He upgraded the brewery a little bit again in 2019 to further increase the capacity, and then he increased it again in 2021 with the addition of another 1500 litre brew kit. But Christian has a history of letting different home brewers brew at the brewery, and they have actually just hired Victor N to be their main brewer. I think that was maybe a couple of months ago now that they did that, so that might be about 6 months or so ago, if my memory serves me correctly. But the brewery itself can be found in the old Alfors mill, and the name of the brewery, AKiA, AKiA, AKiA for the English speakers, is basically a Swedish, it's the abbreviation of the full Swedish name of this building apparently. But as I say, these guys are best known for their different kinds of IPAs. We've had a few different styles from these guys. We've had rye IPAs, New England's, West Coasts. I think we've had a black IPA from them. I'm not sure if we've had an Imperial Stout or anything from these guys though. But yeah, whenever anyone asks me about AKiA Brygghus, I would always think IPA. So yeah, if you're into those styles, AKiA Brygghus are one of the breweries that you do want to keep an eye on. But as of April 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 60 different kinds of beer, and they will no doubt continue to add to that over the next little while. But definitely one of the really up-and-coming Swedish breweries that I would recommend you check out. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about AKiA Brygghus for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at the Danish side of things. So Caleidoskope Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Amager in the southern part of Copenhagen, and basically Caleidoskope Brewing is the brewing project of the owners of the Peder's Beer Bar, which you'll find in the centre of Copenhagen, quite close to the townhouse and the central station. But the four men behind the company are Jonas Kobero, Rasmus Roskist, Anders Ising, and also Brian Madsen, and these guys together opened up Peder's Bar back in December of 2016, which is known as a very good beer bar. It's actually one of these little basement bars, and hopefully the next time I go over to Copenhagen I can do a little bit of filming in there for you. So yeah, we'll see about doing that. But the brewery itself can be found near Klovermarken in Amager to the south of Copenhagen, and in the brewery they currently have a 500 litre brew house with 2,000 litres of fermentation capacity, but I believe there is scope to expand that over the next little while. But Anders and Brian are the two brewers, and Anders studied at the Scandinavian Brewing School, which is very well known. Many of the well-known Danish craft brewers have come out of that, including the guys at AKiA Brygghus itself. But as of April 2022, sorry, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 60 different kinds of beer, and the name Caleidoskope is taken just because they basically say they want to play with lots of different combinations of ingredients in the same way that a kaleidoscope plays with like shapes and colours and things. And of course, they've just changed the C and the K around for a little bit of fun. So yeah, it begins with a C and the K. Basically, the scope has the K in it. But yeah, I think these guys have done some really nice beers. I've had a really good West Coast IPA from them. I think the last beer we reviewed from them was a West Coast IPA, Blue Specks, or something like that. But the first couple of beers I had from them were New England's. I think this is about my 5th review or so that I've done from Caleidoskope again. So yeah, these guys are always doing some interesting stuff, and they are one of the breweries that I always keep an eye out for when I go over to Copenhagen. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Caleidoskope Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And if you are interested, you can of course go to Peder's in the middle of Copenhagen and buy a few different cans to take away. But yeah, that is everything we need to say about the two breweries involved in this beer. So we can get on to the tasting section of the video then. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on the can once again before we open it up. I'm not sure exactly what this is meant to be. Is it meant to be like a kind of you know, like that kind of cube hotel thing in Tokyo, something like that. Not sure exactly what it's meant to be, but this is a 440 milliliter can. You can see on the back side of the label there is the AKiA Brygghus symbol, which is of course like the watermill, the Alfors mill, if I can pronounce that correctly, in which the brewery is based. And there you can see the Caleidoskope one, which has that nice kind of pattern behind it too. It's a plain silver top on the can on this, and like I said to you earlier, this beer was released as part of the local Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for April of 2022. But yeah, I believe this one cost me 50 Swedish krona, if memory serves me correctly, so that's about €5, maybe about £4.50, something like that, and I guess somewhere in the region of like $6.50 American. So yeah, it didn't tell us any what any of the hops are in this beer, I had a little look on the social medias. I also had a little look on the glass banking page and also on the Untappd page for the beer. So no listings of the hops that are in this one. So we'll just kind of play it by mouth, as we should say, and see what we get out of this. But yeah, the two Great Mondays, a 6.5% New England Hazy IPA from AKiA Brygghus in Kungsbacka here in Sweden, and Caleidoskope Brewing Co from Amager in Copenhagen over in Denmark. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Yes. So, there we go. Let me just fire this guy in. There we go. This should be quite nice. Looks like a very nice beer anyway. So let me just line that up again so that my OCD is happy. And that looks pretty good. So, yeah. There we go. So, as you can see, this one is poured pretty much as you would expect from a modern New England Hazy IPA. So, I would say that the head on this one is about a three-quarter finger head. It's perfect white. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's not got any level of kind of cream colour to it or anything like that. But you can see it's got some lovely, very, very small bubbles to it. It's an absolutely beautiful looking beer, this one. In terms of the colour, I think it's fair to say that this is a very bright yellow. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices, and I think this one certainly compares to like a pineapple juice or a mango juice or something like that. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on one, the type of malt that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will also affect the colour of the beer too, but in New England IPAs you don't often have to care about that. But in terms of the level of haziness that we're getting out of this one, it's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that we've come across before, but that might change when we put the last little bit of it into the glass. But yeah, remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast that is used. But yeah, not much in the way of visible carbonation in this one, and as you can see, if I put my fingers behind it, it does have a nice little bit of opacity to it, but certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that I've come across in the past. So yeah, looks the part then. Let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we got on then. You can see the head on this has just faded away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer. But aroma time, let's have a little look at this. Yeah, this smells very, very nice. Yeah, on the yeah, for me, first impression of this one is it comes across as quite a nice bready New England IPA. Get a little bit of the wheat in the back of the nose as well. As I've said to you before, for me there's 6 different elements to think about in New England IPAs. You know, the yeasty kind of farmhousey character, the rye leaning grain, that's a bit more, those two are a bit more prevalent in American brewed New Englands, but you also have wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also a little bit of sweetness. So we'll see how that plays out when we smell it a little bit more closely and look at the flavour and things. But on the green component, I would say that it's quite floral leaning, and on the fruity side of things, for me there's a little mix of tropical note in there. It's got a little bit of oiliness to it, and there's a wee bit of a citrusy kind of zesty sort of thing, but overall it's quite a nice smelling New England IPA, I have to say. That's a basic first impression, but let's have a little closer look at the aroma and see what we can actually get. Yeah, aroma wise for me, on the malty side of things, definitely a little bit of a kind of soft bread crusty character in there. On top of that, a bit of fluffy white bread, but I can actually feel that the wheat in this beer is really thickening it out and smoothing it out a little bit. But there's also a good oaty presence to this one as well. And one of the things that I have to say about these, with these beers that I'm reviewing from April, these are not at their freshest. That is one thing you have to remember. And remember that the oaty content in a beer is often, the oaty aroma and stuff is usually a good indicator of how old a beer actually is. The drier the oat smell, usually the older the New England IPA is. If it's very, very creamy, then the chances are your beer is very, very fresh. But yeah, in terms of the aroma on the oaty side of things, for me, I've got quite a nice bit of a smooth and sweet character actually from the oaty side of this beer. But in the back of the nose, you do get a little bit of that wheaty bitiness in there. So I'm going to be curious to see how this actually translates into the flavour. But yeah, There's nothing that you wouldn't expect from a New England IPA in terms of aroma with this. It's got a bit of a, a fresh bread crusty backbone, some fluffy white bread. You can smell the wheat just thickening it out and making the beer very smooth. Bit of bitiness in the back of the nose, but you've also got a little bit of that kind of oaty creaminess to it as well. So yeah, I do really like how the aroma of this beer goes about its business. Yeah, aroma wise, this is very, very nice. I do get a little bit of sweetness. There is maybe a little touch of that kind of butter candy, butterscotchy type thing out of this one, but not too much in the way of sweetness. More an oaty and slightly wheaty leaning New England IPA. On the green component, for me, teeny little bit of earthiness, but it has got quite a bright floral aromaticity to it. But I get quite a wee bit of a zesty, grassy character out of this one too, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I do wonder, maybe there's a bit of Citra in this. Citra always gives you that big kind of bright, zesty grassiness. Of course, Centennial would be another one, but you don't see Centennial used all that often in IPAs anymore. Lovely hop though, I do enjoy a little bit of Centennial, but for me, this is actually quite a zesty and grassy leaning beer in terms of its green component, but there is some floral character to back it up, and I think the floral side of the beer has a wee bit of oiliness. But let's focus on the fruity side of it. Let's focus on that. So, fruity side of things. For me, I don't get so much in the way of like a pungent, passion fruit or anything, but there's certainly, I get quite a big oily mango, and that makes me suspect Citra. Again, I do think there could be a little bit of Citra in this, maybe a wee bit of Idaho 7 as well, because you're getting these I'm getting a little bit of a softer apricot-y papaya type thing, and a wee bit of pineapple as well actually out of this beer. Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, juicy mango, wee bit of like an apricot-y, pineapple-y type note. I'm trying to figure out, am I getting like a little bit of... There's something a wee bit more oily to this one. I don't think it's quite orange or anything like that, but it almost smells a little bit like Nelson Sauvin. There's like a little bit of a kind of gooseberry, almost slightly limey type note to it. So there's a few things that could be. It could of course be Nelson Sauvin itself, but it could also be something along the lines of like a little bit of Motueka, or even Equinaut would be another one. But it doesn't strike me as being all that limey actually. I don't think it's Sabro. I mean, I don't, Sabro comes to mind though, because you do get a little touch of like a slightly, I don't wonder, it has a wee tiny bit of that almost coconut note. But yeah, the more that I smell of it, the more kind of orangey it's getting. So yeah, for me definitely there's juicy mango, a bit of an apricot, a bit of a pineapple, and there's like a wee tiny touch of like a gooseberry, orangey type note to this one for sure. So yeah, I'd be very curious to know what the hop profile of this beer actually is. But it does certainly smell very, very nice. So as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of it before you get stuck in. But a nice, oily, fruity component for me. So yeah, smelling the beer is always quite an interesting experience, and it trains the nose. It helps you get to know the hops a little bit better. But yeah, this one is the Two Great Mondays from AKiA Brygghus in Kungsbacka here in Sweden, in collaboration with Caleidoskope Brewing Company from Amager in the southern part of Copenhagen in Denmark. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanget, Skål, cheers, a New England IPA at 6% ABV. 6.5, sorry. There we go. Oh yeah. That's really nice. I'm going to say straight away, it's a lovely, just very, very smooth IPA. First impression of it is it does have a bit of wheatiness to it, but I'm also finding that this one is quite, it's got quite a bit of oaty character as well, but it's a very smooth and creamy New England IPA, this one. I like what they've done with this. The green component has a good little bit of floral character to it and some grassiness, and you've also got that oily, fruity character. But this is solid. I'm going to say thumbs up to both AKiA and Caleidoskope for this. This is pretty awesome. So yeah, glad that I picked this one up. I'm glad that I picked this beer up for sure. Yeah. So, where do we start with this one then? Yeah, middle third of your palate, as we always do. So, that middle third of your palate, you can feel you've got a little bit of a kind of bread crusty base to the beer, which I think works really nicely. You can feel that like a fresh, you know, hedgehog, tiger roll type thing. More of a hedgehog roll actually. So just a wee bit of bread crust. Then you can feel like a nice light layer of that fluffy, fresh white bread, which I really enjoy. Yeah, so lovely, fresh white bread, absolutely. That works really, really well. Then on top of that fresh white bread, you have, on top of that fresh fluffy white bread, you can feel the thicker wheaty character out of the beer. And the wheat is really quite dense actually. I do like how that goes together for sure. Yeah, so you've got that nice, as we say, the wheatiness actually gives the beer a lot of smoothness and really thickens out that malt base quite nicely. And in the back third of your palate, it's really interesting how it goes together as well, but we'll come to that in a minute. So yeah, a little bit of bread crust, a fluffy white bready character from the barley malt. You can feel the wheat just thickening that whole thing out. And then on top of the beer, in the middle third of the palate, you can feel you've got that nice kind of creamy thickness to it as well. So I really like how that goes together. Yeah, so the big the creaminess that you get out of the oats of this is quite interesting because, as I say, this beer, it says that it's best before the 17th of the 3rd, 23. So I think that it's been canned in around mid-March, and I'm drinking it toward the end of April now. So it's about 6 weeks old, and it's still coming across. It's maintaining that kind of creaminess. You're not getting much of that kind of dry oaty character out of this one, which is quite impressive. So this beer is holding up pretty well. As I say, in the middle third of your palate, you get this nice circle there, and you can feel you've got that nice kind of creamy oaty character to it. Toward the very extremities of that middle third of your palate, you do perhaps get a little bit of the more powdery, dry character from the oats, and in the dead centre of your palate, there's maybe just a little hint, a little hint of like a McVitie's digestive biscuit or something like that, maybe a wee bit of golden promise. But yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business for sure. It's very nicely done. Yeah, so in terms of the kind of fruity side of things as well, it blends in very well with the bread. It actually blends in very well with that nice kind of bready oaty backbone that the beer has. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in a minute though. But yeah, the malty side of this beer I think is done very well. Let's focus on the back third of the palate. And I think we said everything we need to about the middle third of the palate. But the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. Wee bit of bread crust, but the base of the back third of your palate, again, smooth, kind of hedgehog, bread crusty sort of thing. A little bit of a more, little bit of a more kind of barley malt bready sort of thing, so you can feel that, you can feel that kind of building up a wee bit on you can feel that kind of being a little bit taller, if you like, on the back third of your palate. Then on top of that, you can feel that more bitey, wheaty element to the beer, which is quite interesting. And on top of all that, you start to get some of the yeasty character out of this beer. And I've always found that the AKiA Brygghus ones, I don't know if these guys are making their own yeast, because the AKiA ones in my experience have always had just a little touch of this slightly farmhousey type thing, and I'm getting a wee bit of that vibe to this beer as well. But it is lovely. It is absolutely lovely. I'll say that straight away. But yeah, on top of the kind of wheaty bitiness of this beer, you get a slightly more dense, white bready, doughy sort of thing. Then there's a wee bit of like a sort of crackery, like a Jacob's cream crackery sort of character in there as well, sitting on top of everything. But the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is a little bit taller. Then as you come further forward, the flavour just sort of densifies and squashes down a wee bit more. So you've got a nice big dense, you do have a nice big dense malty character in the middle part of your palate with this one. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business for sure. The malty yeasty side of things is very well done. Let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. So, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a nice wee bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it becomes quite bright and quite floral, quite quickly, to be honest with you. The floral character for me is quite oily. To be honest with you, I like the nice big kind of oily floral character that the beer has. And then round the front curve of the palate, you get a bit of a grassy, zesty sort of thing in there, and it's got a good little bit of an oily note to it as well. So yeah, I really like how that one goes about its business from that perspective too. The green component in this is really nice, but let's focus on the fruity part of the beer. So the fruity part of the beer for me is more I think it's nice and oily, but we'll focus on the base of it first. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of bready build up there. In the base you can feel the soft white bread, and I think there's a bit of oaty smoothness sitting on top of that. Then yeah, you've got that nice kind of oily fruity character just coming out on top of it. So yeah, I do like how this goes together. I'm very curious as to what the hop combination in this one is, but let's just look at these fruity notes. So, on the fruity part of the beer, then at the back of that front third of your palate, I think there's a wee bit of a pungenty passion fruit to this one. I think there's a bit of citra in this. Could be wrong. It could be like Galaxy or something like that as well. There's a lot of different things, but I'm getting a wee bit stronger passion fruit toward the back, the front third of your palate. As you come further forward, it's a nice kind of bright, juicy mango. There's a wee bit of a kind of apricot-y sort of thing as you reach the middle of the palate too. Maybe wee bits. I'm starting to get a wee bit of a kind of oily pineapple in the front half of that front third of your palate as well, the further you go into the aftertaste. But I think underneath that, I'm getting like a wee bit of like a gooseberry sort of thing. Maybe just a wee touch of orange actually as well, and then just behind the very front tip of the tongue, there's a little touch of like a lemon limey kind of character. Very, very curious as to what the hops in this would be, because they do have quite a nice oily component to them as well. So the oily thing makes me want to say that it could be a little bit of like Hallertau Blanc or Nelson Sauvin or something, but I don't think it's quite obvious enough for that. The lightness of the orange and the way the orange comes out makes me want to say a little bit of Sabro, but I think the tropical side of things, it could be Citra, because it's giving you that big zesty character as well. Yeah, very curious about the hoppy side of things. I always used to like to play guess the hops, and back in the day I used to be able to get it right sometimes, but these days there's so many hops, I've probably listed a whole load of wrong ones there. But as I say, bit of passion fruit, juicy mango, wee bit of apricot underneath, some nice pineapple as well, bit of an oily orange, maybe a wee touch of lemony limey character as well. But fruity side of this beer I think is really nice and oily. It works. But let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So, mouthfeel wise, I'd say that this beer is toward the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is really nice and smooth. It's got a big oily, it has got a nice big sort of oily component to it as well. As I say, this is one of the more oily New England IPAs I think I've come across in the last wee while. So it's a bit creamy but a bit oily at the same time. In terms of IBUs, I think this is a fairly standard, 25-30 IBU beer. The malty side of things, it's got a good little bit of breadiness to it, a bit of creaminess as well, and a wee touch of sweetness. But then you've got this nice big oily fruit component there. You've got a good balance between the citrusy side of things and the more juicy sort of tropical character as well. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business for sure. I think it works out very, very nicely. Yeah, I like it. I do like how it goes together. So I think we can leave it at that for this one. This is a really solidly done beer, but knowing AKiA and Caleidoskope, I'm not surprised. So yeah, this one was the Two Great Mondays, a 6.5% New England IPA from AKiA Brygghus in Kungsbacka near Gothenburg. here in Sweden, brewed with Caleidoskope Brewing Co from Amager in the southern part of Copenhagen over in Denmark. Lovely, lovely beer, and one that I recommend you check out. And do check out these breweries if you get the chance. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beer is from both AKiA Brygghus and Caleidoskope. Go and check out their social media, check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys very, very soon. Cheers just now. Slàinte just now.